Hi everybody, it's Cathy here. Lovely to see you again today. I've got the lovely Vanessa May joining me today and we're live from the UK. Vanessa and I met through our grief journeys, our independent grief journeys, but she has gone on to do incredible work within the community. So Vanessa, welcome. It's an absolute joy to have you. Tell us all about yourself.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, so I lost my lovely, lovely son, Harry, in 2019. And I was obviously completely devastated, as everybody who loses a child is. But I very quickly found him. I very quickly knew that what I was looking at, his body was his shell, and I knew that he wasn't in it. And so I was determined to find him, and I did. And that was enormously helpful. It helped me carry on, basically.
I'm so fascinated by the fact that extraordinary things happen to ordinary people. And tell me, how did you find him and what did finding him look like, Vanessa?
Just very quickly, I started reading. I still felt him. I still knew, I just felt him. And obviously,
Here,
I thought I
yeah.
was making it up. And then we started getting signs. I write about all of this in my book, Love Untethered, which is about the first year after Harry died. And I sort of became a little bit obsessional. And I think a lot of people around me thought, oh, bless, she's got to hold on to this, and it was wishful thinking. But yeah, I thought, well, they can think what they like. I really do feel him. We got signs, we got flickering of lights, we got all kinds of things, interference with our phones. And at the time, so I had two ways of which I hope this will be helpful for people. I think we have to find ways after a really terrible loss to survive. My two ways of surviving were my spiritual connection and exploring that and reading and understanding more about the bigger picture, which I was already quite interested in, but this sort of propelled me forward. And then it was also through I was working as a nutritional therapist and a well-being coach, and I was so devastated I couldn't work. And I thought, I can't go back to that. And so I thought, I'll need to find a new way of sort of being in the world because you're so radically changed. And I thought, well, I had so many physical symptoms of grief, so many, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, my heart was racing, I couldn't stop shaking. And as a nutritional therapist, I thought, well, this is nervous system dysregulation. This is shock and trauma. And I thought once I started to learn what I could do to help myself, I thought I could use this to help others. So to cut a long story short, I thought I'll use what I already know and what I'm learning and basically become a holistic grief coach, which is what I now do. So I look at the mind, body, spirit approach to grief, which is lacking in conventional bereavement support. And so a lot of people come to me because they can talk about a spiritual connection with their person. They can tell me about their physical symptoms and obviously talk about, the devastation of their loss. So that's how I sort of started to find meaning and purpose, that and my connection to Harry and my love that just carried on and grew. But then,
A lot of
yeah.
people don't eat, Vanessa, when they're going through
Hmm.
these trauma. How do you, because you're a nutritionist, how do you encourage people back to a routine or to maintain self-care in terms of looking after themselves and eating properly? Are there any kind of top tips you would share?
Well, initially I say don't worry about it. Just try and eat what you can. If it's a takeaway, that's better than nothing. Because being a nutritional therapist, it was all clean, lovely, healthy eating, lots of vegetables, and that goes out of the window. And so when people are coming around, they bring you a cake. If you can eat a bit of cake, eat a bit of cake. Eventually, though, you don't want to feel worse than you already do. And that's what I always say, because if you don't eat properly, you already feel rubbish, you're going to feel worse. So I think it's a question of very simple food. And in Love Untethered, I actually, because although it's my story, it's also part of the book, is giving advice, is giving tips on what meals that you could eat, things that I tried, whether it was Reiki or EMDR. So I sort of give lots of havening. The things I've tried, I offer to the reader and obviously now to my clients. So everyone's very different. So yes, I started to have this idea as a way to survive it. And also I started writing. So I found writing really cathartic, and that turned into my book. And amazingly, I got a publisher. And so that these were the things that were basically keeping me alive. But then unfortunately, 2.5 years after Harry died, my whole family got COVID. My husband ended up in hospital and died.
Vanessa, that's awful.
I know. And 3 weeks before he died, my father died. So my father and my husband within 3 weeks.
Wow.
And it was it was right at the tail end of COVID. So we were ill, so we couldn't enter the hospital, my daughter and I. But because things were changing, we were allowed in at the very end. So I watched him die a really terrible death, which I won't go into now. This I do write about in my book, When Grief Takes Everything, which I think I was looking for a title. I don't know why I'm laughing. I was looking for a title and I thought, yeah, When Grief Takes Everything is an appropriate title because grief took everything. But the subtitle of that book is A Survival Guide to Devastating Loss. So when you lose your child, it's the worst thing to ever happen to anyone. Then when you lose the man who has basically held you up, who has kept you going, who you've shared your grief with, when he goes, and I would argue he died of a broken heart, then my world fell apart again. And the trauma, so I had been diagnosed with PTSD and then I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. So writing continued to be a way that I process my grief and my sort of finding purpose and meaning again, writing to help people, my grief coaching practice to help people. It sounds selfless. It was also quite selfish because it helped me to help people. It made me feel like, okay, I'm doing something with this terrible thing, two terrible things that have happened to me. And I've learned so much. And I did David Kessler's grief educator course. So
His grief leaders.
I'm one of his grief educators. The course was really good. Quite a lot of people do it. It's interesting because a lot of the course are filled up with therapists because therapists often don't feel they're equipped to deal with somebody in traumatic grief. I couldn't find a therapist. That's why I thought I'll fill the gap. I'll be the person that I couldn't find in early grief who really understood, who got it. And that's generally why people come to me because they don't feel they've been heard or understood and they want to work with someone who has that life lived.
Getting therapists qualified in trauma is extremely challenging. I know there are pockets of them, but we need more awareness of who they are, without a doubt, because there's a whole community that needs that service. And getting help is probably one of the most important things that people can
Yeah.
do. Trying to do and work and navigate this on your own, it's really challenging. I mean, it's near impossible, isn't it? You
Yeah.
have to have a community or support system around you. And like you said, in your situation, you had some family support and then that was taken away and removed. I mean, I can't even imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah, what can I say? There aren't any words. It was absolutely, it's still terrible because I'm very much as, I'm trying to find meaning and purpose in my life. And I have this wonderful connection with my husband and my son. I don't sugarcoat it. This is a really difficult path. It's a really difficult path. And, I've read a lot about soul planning and soul contracts. Did I choose this to, accelerate my soul growth? I've been to lots of mediums and I will say that find a good medium like you and it can do so much for you and your healing as long as they're good and they bring your loved one through because they can. That gives more comfort sometimes than going to a bereavement counsellor who you're just sitting there thinking, I don't think they really get it. How could they get? I mean, who can get what's happened to me? I mean, I know there are other people who, have lost a child and a partner or who have lost more than one child. It is quite niche, so getting the help is quite hard. So, I want to be that person who helps people in the worst circumstances.
I think you're incredibly brave. So I know the quality of your work because I've experienced some of it when I've met you before, and I think what you do is extremely beautiful, extremely beautiful. And I love as well that you have got so many strings to your bow that you are able to sort of maneuver between your experience as a nutritionalist as well as a therapist as well as a grief educator and somebody who's actually lived through that experience. When you've lived through the experience, it's completely different.
Yeah.
And your level of empathy and your understanding, but also the pointers that nobody can tell you about until you've experienced them for yourself. PTSD, I was just on a podcast with a young lady called Sarah, Vanessa, talking about the crazy things that can happen to you through those experiences, that when you live a normal life, even if somebody tells you what is happening to them, you can't possibly comprehend the enormity of and how powerful it is to them.
Yeah.
Because grief really is, to whoever's experiencing it, no matter what type of grief it is, nobody's grief will be more powerful than your own, will it? It's
No.
a tremendously individual and private scenario, I think. And I
Yeah.
think, I think we're looking in our community. There are spiritual people that are very well trained in grief and have spent a lot of time working with the bereaved. And I think that helps. I don't know. I suppose, so many mediums go out into the world, Vanessa, that haven't got that experience. And I think when you've got that experience, it's a different ballgame because you understand the healing capacity that spiritual work can have and the amount of, the transformation that can take place as you start to understand and comprehend that consciousness can never die and never end. So I love that you've still got this spiritual connection with Harry and your husband. I think it's beautiful. Do they guide you in the healing work that you do? Do you feel some of the clients being sent to you, and do you experience them in your sessions supporting you and helping you from the other side?
Yes, yes, I can feel them now. I get a kind of goosebumps down one side of my body. I get a feeling like this is my son touching my hair. I often feel, if I'm with a bereaved mother, for example, that's, and if she happens to have a son of a similar age, I just know I can, and I'll often, if I feel that she's open to it, I will say, I bet our boys are here. I bet they're laughing, going, look at our mums. And I think that's really nice. And it usually makes them feel great because, I genuinely feel that, but I think they think, oh, that would be wonderful, because it is. We know that energy can't die. You and I know that souls live on and they're around us. And that can help save your life. It saved my life, knowing that they're still with me. It was soon after my husband died. I had a reading. Do you know Serena? She's an American medium, and she said, I can see your son here and your husband here, and they're like guardians beside you. And that was just such a lovely idea for me, that they were literally like here and here. And that's the kind of thing that helps me, because you do feel like the rug's been pulled out from underneath you. And when it happens once, it's bad enough. But when it happens twice, you just don't feel very safe, hence the PTSD, because you just don't feel safe. So if I feel they're protecting me and they're like my guardians, that's helpful to me. Some people might go, well, you think that if you want to. Well, yeah, I am thinking it and it does help me, so I'll carry on. But yeah, sometimes I'll work with somebody who's grieving and they don't have a spiritual belief, and I think they find it harder. I notice those that are open to the idea, or they have been to mediums or just have an openness, do manage a bit better with their grief, relatively speaking. So I think it's really helpful if you can, but you can't force it. And I would never impose my beliefs on anybody. If they don't feel it, they don't feel it. But
I love that you just actually use your intuition to guide you in certain circumstances. And if you feel that someone's open to it, you share it. And if you don't, you leave it. And I think that's part of the spiritual journey as well, being non-judgmental and not trying to change people's perspective. It's just sharing your experiences. And if they're open to it and it makes their life better, then that's a benefit and a bonus. I think that's beautiful. Really beautiful, Vanessa. What does sharing your life in the physical with your two loving, your son and your husband in spirit, look like or feel like, other than the kind of feelings? When you are with somebody, do you recognize, I don't know, synchronicities or signs, Vanessa, or in your everyday life, do you notice that there's certain behaviors or patterns that they will follow that gives you that kind of inkling and reassurance that they are part of the process and still very much part of your everyday life.
Yeah, I think this is quite common. You can tell me if it is, but I think initially they give lots of signs because you need them. Once you're quite convinced that they're there, you need less signs, and so you get less signs. So I think they might have got a bit lazy with the signs, to be honest. But it's more that I just feel them and I talk to them. I talk to them all the time because I live on my own now. And so, yeah, I talk to them. Often I feel my husband coming through with kind of he was very funny. He used to make me laugh, and I still sense that. And my son is just, I mean, I've been told by mediums, our soul connection is very, very strong. And I feel him very much working with me in sessions. And sometimes I don't know, I don't necessarily acknowledge it. I'll say something, but I'm pretty sure I've been guided to say it. But I'm not always conscious of that. But yeah, so I feel he's very much working with me. But I feel my husband around as well. I miss them so badly. I don't want to give the impression like, oh, she's doing all this. It's awful. I just want them here. That's the bottom line. So, as I say, I never sugarcoat it. Grief is just incredibly hard. And if you've lost, if you've lost a child and a partner, and we were married for 30 years, it's just horrendous. But you know what? You accept it because you have no choice. And I think you have to just know that the love doesn't go anywhere, that I still feel their love. I send love to them. When that expression, grief is love with nowhere to go, I just really disagree with that. I think love does have a place to go. You still give it to them. I still say I love them. I feel their love back. And I think, yeah, it's very, very challenging, but you have no choice but to keep going and try and find some kind of, meaning and purpose if you can, but not everybody does. And so I kind of say maybe your purpose is to just stay, when things are really bad. Because I also think it's important not to feel a pressure to find purpose and meaning. It's great if you can, but
I sometimes say to people, it's great to find passion. If somebody can't find purpose or they don't know what their purpose is, then I sometimes say, quit worrying about it. Try to find your passion. What can you be passionate about? Because love will flow wherever it goes. And if you can get passionate about something and you can really enjoy, you can get joy back into your life, you can start to stimulate the senses, you connection through these means, and you meet new community people and you have joy. And sometimes just having love or kind of connection in life and enjoying something, and often it may be something artistic. It's not always, but sometimes it is a creative joy. You found writing, some people find painting, some people find walking in nature really helps, and hiking, and they join
yeah.
hiking clubs and they start doing marathons or running if they're really adventurous, or they may travel the world. I know people that have quit their jobs as couples, that they, in order to find meaning, they've had a love of travel and they've decided material things just don't matter anymore. They want to experience life and everything that life can give them in different ways. And I think that can be extremely powerful. Yeah, it is hard, isn't it? Because lots of people go in search of purpose, and I think purpose has its value, and I think bringing meaning to loss and finding that is amazing. If you can't, find passion. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and sometimes in early grief, you've just got to find small pleasures, like, literally really small, like a hot water bottle.
Yeah,
Just
I
talking about
agree.
how now it's getting so cold. I had a hot water bottle last night. It was so lovely. A small pleasure. Meeting a friend and going for a walk and the sun's out. You just watching a film on Netflix that you've been looking forward to. These are small pleasures. And sometimes that's all you can manage early on. So take it,
Yeah,
take
I
it.
agree. I also found like making a bowl of soup, or you've got a joy of baking, or you had a joy of
Mm,
baking, baking bread, or doing something
yes.
like a patisserie. It may be just a simple thing, but the sense of accomplishment you get by finishing things, because often when there's post-traumatic stress disorder, you lose a lot of confidence.
Yes.
You can't complete things, and the fact that you don't complete things because your concentration is affected
Hmm.
starts to diminish your sense of self and your self-esteem. And so these little wins, beautiful little wins of just doing small little gifts for oneself, or even little, some people do that lovely thing, Vanessa, of little small loving deeds for others, little blessings on behalf. There's a lovely lady who's coming on in a few weeks' time who does the most incredible thing where she leaves little gifts all around the world in thanks to her loved one, and people find them and then they email in her website and Facebook site, and they share what happened to them as a result of finding this gift. These little acts of kindness, these random acts of kindness, they're just so powerful, and they can take on complete stories on their own, which becomes somebody's purpose, really interestingly enough.
Yeah, I agree. You just find small things. In my new book, I talk a lot about this and ways that you can just start to integrate the grief and the loss and the trauma into your life. And you do have to start quite small. And going back to what you were saying about how it affects your self-esteem, I think that's massive. I think it's huge. You just feel because your world's fallen apart, you can't trust life. Initially, that's how you feel. I can't trust life. Bad things happen and they might happen again. So, and then people blame themselves. People always want to blame themselves. If I'd done that, they'd have stayed alive. If only I'd done that, they wouldn't have died. And so we do an awful lot of bashing ourselves, feeling guilty, because if you've been traumatized, you get sensory overload. You don't sleep, so don't concentrate. And all these things chip away at your self-worth and your ability to function in the world. So you don't feel great. So finding ways to just get some of that back, and whilst acknowledging how terrible it is, because it is. I think it's so important. We do try to find ways to help ourselves. And at the same time, we go, but you know what? This is terrible. And let me have that. Because that's what people need. They need to have their grief validated. They don't want kind of toxic positivity, spiritual bypassing. They want people to go, this is terrible. I'm so sorry. What can I do to help? Or what can you do to help yourself? That's how I operate in my
They need,
practice anyway.
they need their grief witnessing, and they need to be able to expose it and process
Yeah.
it in order to not repress it.
Yes, it needs expression. And that's why, my writing my books has been my way to process my grief and then turn it into also part of this, this new book, When Grief Takes Everything. It has the first section is my story. The last section is, okay, what are you going to do about this terrible thing that's happened to you? So it's practical. Yeah, how to move through it, not to make it better, not to get over it, just to, okay, this has happened. You've got to find a way to integrate this into your life and live it to the best of your ability. So let me show you ideas of how you might do this. So it's the third section is divided into mind, body, and spirit. So obviously the spirit side, you can imagine, is continuing your bond. The body part is what you can do to help yourself physically if you're traumatized. And the mind part is kind of also ways how you can support yourself emotionally because you've been devastated. But in the middle part of When Grief Takes Everything, I've got 6 amazing women who tell their stories and who share what's helped them. So there's one who does wild water swimming. There's one who trained to be a Reiki practitioner, an EFT. So two are grief educators, trained with David Kessler. So they're demonstrating. They don't sugarcoat it like me. They're like, yeah, this was awful. Let me tell you how awful it was. And then they go, but now I'm doing this. And they tell it honestly like it is. They're all very authentic. And so I'm hoping people will feel inspired and be able to relate to my story, the story of these women, and then go on to read ways they might try. They might just pick one thing out and go, I'll give that a go. And I've got a resources section, with mediums, with books I recommend, podcasts that I recommend. Yeah, so there are ways you can support yourself. But going back to the self-esteem thing, yeah, that's something that most people don't really expect, that grief is going to knock your self-esteem, but it really does, because everything has fallen away. Everything you knew to be secure in your life and stable, and everything you thought you could rely upon, nothing is permanent.
It sounds to me that you got a good sense of love from the community around you as well, because I imagine relationships change when you have this tremendous amount of loss in your life. All sorts of different relationships that are still earthbound relationships change. I get the impression from you that the sense of community and having other people around you that like-minded and hearing other people's stories really helped you as well. You've kind of found your tribe in some way, Vanessa.
Yes, I think because I don't think I have a single bereaved mother or widow who hasn't said that they've lost friends. And I would agree, you lose friends. They can't hack it. You're different and you're not fun anymore. Well, you can be, but you're carrying something and people can't, they don't want to see your raw grief. Some do. You do have a nucleus that might stick with you, but a lot of them fall by the wayside. So you do have to go out and you have to find your tribe. And I have done that, but it's a small little tribe. I have my clients as well, but my actual friends, it's a small group. But there's nothing better than spending time with someone who goes, oh my God, I know. Yes, that happened to me, or I feel like that. It's, and shares what they do to maybe help themselves, or just not. It doesn't really matter. But I think that's really important. You need people around you who get it, who, yeah, because it's,
Yeah, that's it's. I mean, it sounds straightforward and easy, doesn't it? But if you're a shy person before this happens and you're quite a private person, and then you're thrown into this situation where, hey, like the support structure you have is no longer there, and now you've got to make that effort. It's hard, Vanessa, isn't it? It's hard.
yeah, it's really hard. But I'll give you. So I the people that I've made connections with have been really interesting. Some have been through compassionate friends or helping parents heal, other bereaved mothers. But an example of how there's a shortcut is I was on Instagram and I found this woman, and she said she was a bereaved mother, a widow, and a grief coach. And I was like, oh my God. And she was in the States. And I was like, I'm just going to reach out to her. I'm just going to reach out to her. So I did. And she immediately got back to me. And we now speak on Zoom once a month.
Oh, how lovely, Vanessa.
Yeah.
It
So,
can really just be. So we talk about spirituality, don't we? When we talk about that energy exchange. So it really can just be you felt pulled and inspired to give it a go. And at the end of the day, the worst you can do is she's going to say no or not respond. But she
yeah.
didn't. She embraced you with open arms and she took you on a journey, and now you have a wonderful friendship. I mean, it's so simple, isn't it? But it's such a lovely way of connection. We're so fortunate. I think the internet and all
Yeah.
the social media that we have at our hands, as much as many people have challenges at times with the overload from it, the fact
Mm.
that it can connect us internationally all over the world at any point in time, and we can gain these new friends and family and support structures is really wonderful, really
Yeah,
wonderful.
I don't think as long as it's used well, I don't think we should knock all social media because I post on Instagram. If anyone wants to follow me, I'm may.wellbeing.grief support. And I think there's a really nice little community for grief on there. And everyone's really supportive. I post a lot about grief. In fact, that's all I do. And I think people find it comforting, and I find comfort from reading other people's posts. And I think that can be quite an important when you're feeling isolated and you don't want to go out into the world. I'm a great believer in doing things like online yoga or going on social media, but being very discerning. That can provide you with some support and comfort. And I think, but obviously you have to be a bit, cautious as to how you use it and who you interact with, obviously. But I think it can be, yeah, one of the good things about modern life.
Absolutely. Well, Vanessa, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on. It's been a real pleasure. I hope you go on to continued success. I can't wait to read the book when it comes out. Where can anybody, if anybody wants to get hold of a copy, Vanessa, or get in contact with you, where's best to find that information?
So, Love Untethered: How to Live When Your Child Dies is available on Amazon, Waterstones, Barnes& and Noble now. But my new book, When Grief Takes Everything, is out in the middle of October, and you'll be able to get that on Amazon. I've got an author website, which is probably the easiest website to remember because it's just vanessamay.co.uk. So you can find my books there, but also from there, if you go on the About Me page, you can click through to find out about my holistic grief coaching. If you need support, I'm available. So do get in touch.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's so lovely to see you again, Vanessa.
And
I
you.
wish you all the best. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Kat.